The notion that global warming is a war by the mainstream media against Christianity is a complex and multifaceted concept that warrants examination. At its core, this idea suggests that the media's coverage of climate change is motivated by a desire to undermine Christian values and promote a secular, liberal agenda. While this claim may seem far-fetched to some, it is rooted in a deeper cultural and philosophical context that is worth exploring. One of the primary arguments made by those who posit that global warming is a war against Christianity is that the media's emphasis on environmentalism and sustainability is a thinly veiled attempt to supplant traditional Christian values with a new, paganistic worldview. According to this perspective, the focus on climate change is not merely a scientific or journalistic pursuit, but a rather ideological crusade aimed at dismantling the social and cultural norms that have long been associated with Christianity. By emphasizing the importance of reducing carbon emissions, conserving natural resources, and promoting eco-friendly practices, the media is allegedly seeking to create a new moral framework that is hostile to Christian teachings on issues such as stewardship, dominion, and the role of humanity in the natural world. Another argument made by proponents of this view is that the media's coverage of global warming is often tinged with a sense of apocalypse and doom, which is seen as a deliberate attempt to undermine Christian eschatology and the notion of a divine plan for humanity. By portraying climate change as an existential threat to human civilization, the media is allegedly seeking to create a sense of fear and urgency that is antithetical to the Christian message of hope, redemption, and salvation. Furthermore, the emphasis on human agency and collective action as the primary means of addressing climate change is seen as a challenge to the Christian doctrine of original sin and the notion that humanity is inherently flawed and in need of divine redemption. Additionally, some argue that the media's promotion of climate change as a global, collective problem that requires a unified response is a veiled attempt to promote a form of global governance and secular humanism that is hostile to Christian values. By emphasizing the need for international cooperation, global agreements, and collective action to address climate change, the media is allegedly seeking to create a new world order that is antithetical to the principles of national sovereignty, individual freedom, and limited government that are often associated with Christian conservatism. However, it is also important to note that this perspective is not universally accepted, and many Christians and people of faith are actively engaged in environmental activism and advocacy for climate change mitigation. These individuals and groups see the issue of climate change as a moral and spiritual imperative, and argue that caring for the planet and promoting sustainability is a fundamental aspect of Christian stewardship and discipleship. Moreover, many scientists, journalists, and experts who are covering the issue of climate change are motivated by a genuine concern for the planet and the desire to raise awareness about the urgency of the issue, rather than a deliberate attempt to undermine Christianity. In conclusion, the idea that global warming is a war by the mainstream media against Christianity is a complex and multifaceted concept that reflects deeper cultural and philosophical tensions between secularism and Christianity. While some argue that the media's coverage of climate change is motivated by a desire to undermine Christian values and promote a secular, liberal agenda, others see the issue as a moral and spiritual imperative that requires a collective response. Ultimately, the relationship between Christianity and environmentalism is more nuanced and multifaceted than a simple narrative of conflict and opposition, and requires a more nuanced and thoughtful approach to fully understand the complexities of this issue.